Space friends, the time has come. For years we have wondered what would happen if the Enterprise D, a Galaxy-class supercruiser, were to engage a Romulan Dystopia-class warbird in a one-on-one battle. This battle never occurred, even though it almost happened many times over the years of Star Trek The Next Generation. Let's do an in-depth battle breakdown for this scenario and see what would happen. Now you can watch this video on its own if you want, but this is actually part 2 of this scenario. In part 1, we went over a lot of technical features to provide us with all the solid foundation of speculation to game this out. If you want to keep on watching, feel free, but if you want some background as to why this all plays out the way it does, then have a look in the description or the first pinned comment to find the link to part 2. Also, a very short plug to the channel and Patreon in general. If you're interested in getting a more inside perspective of what is happening with this channel, and also getting your own customized 3D starship renders, consider joining the fleet at patreon.com/resurrected. This is also linked in the description and the first comment. And for all of those who commented on the last video with predictions, when we're done here, tell me if this battle goes how you predicted it would go. And feel free to even tell me if you disagree. So there are 3 tactical situations or scenarios for how this may play out, and we will go over all 3. Scenario 1 is the optimal situation for the Romulans, the surprise stealth attack. Scenario 2 is less optimal for the Romulans, and that would be an outright brawl without the benefit of stealth. Scenario 3 is the expected stealth attack, where the Romulans are going to attack the Enterprise after a cloaked approach, but the Enterprise is aware of the coming attack and prepared. Now there are a couple of quick things I want to explain before showing you how this goes down that I forgot to mention in part 1. You may have noticed that the Romulan Dystopia model you see here is slightly different from what you would see in the show. This Dystopia is the Aquila, named by you guys, the fans, actually, when it was first designed. Now I designed the Aquila to be a kind of Dominion War variant of the original Dystopia, but it's also heavily influenced by the original Andrew Probert concepts, where she actually fires weapons from the intended locations and not just from the nose. But for this scenario, we will say that this is actually the same version of Dystopia first encountered by the Enterprise in the episode The Neutral Zone. As far as the Enterprise goes, the Galaxy class did get a number of upgrades over the years. No doubt she would have been almost immediately upgraded when the Romulans broke out of their isolation, and then upgraded more after the first terrifying encounter with the Borg, and these ships were certainly upgraded again for the Dominion War. In this scenario, we can say that this is the same version of Galaxy class that we got when the Romulans first appeared, and in other scenarios, it could be upgraded a bit, probably better shields and weapons output, but the nature of most of those upgrades isn't very clear, and I'm not sure if they matter much in this particular battle. But feel free to dive into those upgrades in the comments if you like. So let's get into it. Scenario 1, the Romulan surprise stealth attack. This is the scenario that most Romulan warships are designed for. We will not be totally unfair and say that the Enterprise's shields are down, but let's say she is on the borders of the neutral zone and investigating the mystery of those lost outposts. She would at least be traveling with shields up. In this situation where the shields are up, a competent Romulan commander will go ahead and give the target a little peek, maybe a very subtle energy spike, but not enough to reveal anything, just to get the target moving and looking in a certain direction. When this setup is complete, this is most likely what would happen. Alright, let me explain what has happened here. You see, the Romulans choose to attack the Enterprise in midships at point-blank range. This avoids a quick lock-on from the Enterprise's torpedoes, which fire directly forward or aft, but not up or down or sideways. And it presents the engineering section of the Enterprise for attack. Romulan weapons, especially with plasma torpedoes and pulse disruptors, can execute a devastating alpha strike at short range with the intent of disabling or destroying the target outright. The Romulans would target engineering. They would prefer to disable the Enterprise for possible capture, and they certainly would transport several hundred Marines over to try to capture the Enterprise once she is disabled. That is, if the Romulans feel they have time to capture the Enterprise before Federation reinforcements respond. If the Deredix is allowed to execute this attack, which she is designed for, there is simply no contest here. So let's make things a little bit more fair. Scenario 2. The nose-to-nose brawl. I liken this scenario to the situation in the episode The Enemy, where Commander Tomalak boldly crosses the neutral zone to confront the Enterprise at Galorndon Core and compels them to give up the rescued Romulan officers. Let's say that things go badly and Picard is not able to de-escalate the situation. In the scenario, the Warbird is not cloaked, but both ships have weapons armed and shields up, and are practically nose-to-nose at relatively close range. Here's how it would go. You see, the initial exchange of fire is certainly devastating for the Enterprise. Luckily, the Enterprise's phaser arrays are awesome and Worf's targeting skills are legendary. The plasma torpedoes, which account for a large percentage of the destructiveness of this Romulan attack, are quickly targeted and destroyed by the Enterprise's phasers before impact, which are actually pretty good at point defense abilities as shown in the episode The Price, where she easily destroys the Ferengi missiles. But the rest of the Romulan weapons are so devastating that they are able to almost eliminate the Enterprise's shields. Still, the Enterprise survives and is able to withdraw to long range. The Romulans also suffer damage to their shields, but nowhere near to the degree of the Enterprise. However, it's going to take some time for the most powerful Romulan weapons to recharge, and the Enterprise is now out of range of the more effective ones. And the Enterprise's Type 10 phasers have excellent range. This leaves the Romulans to only use their disruptor arrays to actually exchange fire. At this point, the Enterprise has the option of leaving if they wanted to, but they would not because this is still Federation space, and they would engage the Romulans as long as possible, at least hopefully so that reinforcements could arrive. Scenario 3. The expected stealth attack. And now on to the most likely scenario. In Scenario 3, we can say that it's Tomalak again, who boldly crosses the neutral zone, and this time he decides that the rescued Romulan officers know too much. It is better that he makes sure they die, and he is willing to destroy the Enterprise in the process. Therefore, he would attempt a stealth attack in an effort to outright destroy the Enterprise. No negotiating, no messing around, no disabling the Enterprise, just destroy her and get it done, and then let the diplomats sort out the so-called act of war. But the Enterprise knows they are coming and is ready. Of course, the Enterprise will do everything it can to detect the Romulans, but they have mere hours. There's no guarantee that they can devise a method of detection in that time. So they have a plan for the worst-case scenario and assume that the Romulans will be able to execute the dreaded stealth alpha strike. So first, the Enterprise would put all the civilian personnel, the families of the crew, etc., into her fleet of shuttles and send them away to safety. Then she would separate the saucer section. This way, the Romulans will have to choose between two targets. But the saucer section doesn't fly to safety or anything like you might expect. It sticks around as if in close formation with the drive section. You'll see why by the time of the attack. So ready? Here we go. You see what happened here? The Romulans correctly choose to attack the star drive section of the Enterprise because this is the bigger threat. The moment the Romulans decloak the saucer section, initiates an antimatter spread. This is a neat little trick we've seen her do against the Borg in the Best of Both Worlds. This trick does not really do much damage, but for a moment, it severely disrupts the targeting sensors and guidance systems of the Romulan weapons. This really messes up the Romulan attack, causing some torpedoes to go wild, and even some disruptor bolts to miss. The plasma torpedoes get confused and chase shadows, and the star drive section is able to burst impulse engines and get some distance. As soon as the smoke clears, the Enterprise is able to unleash a nice barrage of torpedoes and phaser strikes. The drive section shields are still affected, but they hold. And now the drive section of the Enterprise is at an optimal position to use the superior sustained fire and range of her weapons and gain a significant head start in the damage race. But what about the saucer section? The saucer section would of course now be almost dead of power, but also would have fired a burst from thrusters to get some distance from the Romulans. Once the smoke settles, the Romulans do have the option of destroying the saucer section, but luckily there's no one aboard it. The saucer section is being controlled remotely by data, and if the control transmission is disrupted, it has been given a script or a program. So if the Romulans do decide to take their revenge on the saucer section, while it would be a material loss, there would be no loss of life. I think by the time the star drive section is out of the optimal range of the Romulans' weapons, while the Romulans could stay and fight and even have a chance to win, Tomalak would see the writing on the wall and choose to cloak and withdraw. In this final scenario, because the Enterprise's crew is skilled and innovative, and because they are prepared, the Enterprise is effectively the winner. But my conclusion is that if we're just comparing the ships themselves, the Warbird is an actual warship and far more superior at the act of battle than the Enterprise. No question in my opinion. However, I'll throw a couple of bones to my Starfleet fans. The Enterprise is unmatched in its ability for deep interstellar exploration that can be executed over the course of not weeks, not months, but years if necessary. The Dystopia are also designed for some exploration, but not anywhere near the levels of a Galaxy-class starship. Also, the Enterprise is designed for diplomatic outreach in a way that the Warbird cannot match. She has the facilities to comfortably host representatives, dignitaries, and diplomats. She is a powerful symbol of hope and peace. The Dystopia is mostly a show of force and terror. They are designed to intimidate through fear, which is ultimately a less effective way, in most cases, to achieve diplomatic goals. So there you have it, space friends. Again, I would like to encourage you to comment on this matchup. Feel free to write down your own scenario in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. We are almost at 70,000 subscribers, if not there by the time of this video release, but let's see if we can get to 100,000 soon. And don't forget about my Patreon at patreon.com/resurrected. And here's a special thanks to my Patreon supporters with the end credits. Until next time, space friends.